What up? Wade here. So today I got another view from the vault, and I guess ode to the royal wedding. It's coming at you from London, England. And this one specifically is how to squeeze more hours out of your day, how to do more in less time, giving you more free time to do whatever you want with everything else. And so a great quote that I really like is, with structure comes freedom. And a lot of times when people think, oh man, why do I want to structure my day? That sounds really boring. What it leads to is more freedom and more free time to do what you want, to work on those hobbies, to work on your side hustle, to hang out with friends and family, meditate, read, whatever you want to do with all this extra free time you're going to have after watching this video. I also have a couple new tweaks on this to where I view things almost from a whole different paradigm now. But what I want to do first, as always, is have you check out the video, go through the 5 tips, and then at the end, make sure to check back because I got some updates for you. As always, enjoy.
And I figured since today's topic is how to have the time to do whatever the hell you want, I would do it at one of the most infamous timepieces in the world here, the Big Ben Tower in London. So what do I mean by having the time to do whatever the hell you want? What I mean by that is most people go through life and they kind of haphazardly plan their day and they have a to-do list, but it's not the systematic approach to achieving everything they want. And so a lot of guys I've worked with, literally through this system I'm going to teach you here on this video, they've increased their productivity by a factor of 10. And some of them had experiences or things they wanted to get to in their life that they just never got to because they didn't think there was enough time. And again, it just came from them not having that system in place. So if I was one of these people over here taking pictures of me for some reason, I guess it's the Big Ben Tower behind me, but if I was listening in on the conversation and I heard some guy saying, yes, structure your day. Yes, structure it more, and it's a lot of fun. That doesn't sound like fun to me at all. Like thinking more structure, more organization, that's not fun, cool shit. But what happens is the more you structure your day, the more free time you can allot to actually get and accomplish all those cool things that you want to accomplish. So with structure comes freedom. Freedom! 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 2 more other reasons why this is important before we get into the actual system is most people live life in the gray zone. So because you're living haphazardly, going through your day, like I said before, you don't really know when you're supposed to do this. Oh, maybe I'll get to reading now, or maybe I'll meditate. And while you're meditating, you're thinking about work. And then you go out and you're thinking, when you're out at the club, you're thinking about work. And then when you're at work, you're thinking about going out to the club. And you're in this gray zone where you're never solely focused on one thing. And there's been a lot of studies done that say you can't really multitask. It's just you're like allotting short little periods of time of monofocus into the multitasking, and you're just spreading yourself way too thin. So the important thing to do is allotting specific times to achieve things using the system I'm about to teach you. And then the third and last reason why the structure is important is because shit happens. Shit happens in life. And what I mean by that is if you set a goal of something you want to achieve, something fucked up is going to happen. And if you don't have the confidence to have the follow through there, you're gonna give up again and fall into that dabbler mentality and fall into that. And a lot of success barriers come into play here. So with a strategic system where you have the confidence, okay, we're gonna start small, we're gonna start with a week, then a month, then thinking about 3 months. As you go forward and you start building that momentum and actually achieving these goals you've set for yourself, you're gonna have so much more confidence to take on bigger and better goals. And then when shit happens, you're gonna persevere, push on through, persist, because you still have the confidence of like, hey, this worked before, and yeah, the shit happened, but I trust myself, I trust my own judgment and the system that I've created here to have the follow through to actually achieve it. All right, let's get into it. Time to start the system. And what I'm gonna do here is start with it like an hour by hour day, like just look at step by step throughout the day, and then we'll get into expand it out to a week, to a month, giving you that long-term perspective where you do have that confidence to achieve bigger and better things. But starting off, when you get into the day, it's actually important to look the night before. Pretty interesting, what I call the nighttime ritual. And there's 2 aspects of the nighttime ritual that are important. Number 1 is you have the to-do list, and that's pretty obvious, right? I think a lot of people do this. When they go to bed, you know, you're in a high consciousness headspace, and you're thinking, okay, what are the top like 3 to 5 things I need to do? Okay, cool, prioritize them, what I gotta do first, second, third, fourth, fifth. I think that's great. Start there, plan that. Step 2, and I don't really know anyone that does this, is I had a sleep video a little while back where I was talking about different sleep patterns, stuff like that. And there's been a lot of science proving that we have 90-minute sleep cycles. So you have like the light sleep, and then you go into like deep REM sleep, and then you come out of it a bit again, and you go into another one. And if you wake up during the deep REM, that's when you wake up and you're like, all groggy and out of it, right? So what you do is you look at those 90-minute increments, and you plan accordingly when you gotta wake up, and we'll talk about doing a morning routine in a second, making sure you have enough time for that before you go to work. and setting that up and either go with the 4.5 hours, 6 hours, or 7.5 hours, which are all different increments of the 90-minute interval there. So I try to do, for me, if you know, I'm well rested, everything, I try to do 6 hours just because I can get a lot of shit done. If I'm getting a little bit tired, I'll try to do 7.5. And if I just got too much shit to do, like a product launch or something, it's usually about either 3 hours or 4.5 hours of sleep, which is kind of, you can't really do that long term. You can do that for maybe a month, but after a while you're just gonna get sick or something. But pick that increment, plan it out, and then set your alarm. Sleep nicely, sleep well. And then when you wake up, no snooze. And I've talked about this before, the no snooze revolution. Literally, I wish you could just take it off your iPhone and just not have a snooze button or on your alarm clock or whatever you have. But you need to, you know, trust me with this. And more importantly, trust yourself from the night before when you strategically plan the time you wanted to get up, looking at your day and planning through the to-do list and everything like that. Then when you wake up, you're not gonna be in a high consciousness headspace, but you have to trust yourself. What happens is you're really groggy, you're really out of it, and you're kind of unconscious, and you're just thinking, I just wanna stay in bed. It's comfortable there. I should probably snooze, just 10 more minutes. But what instead you should do is have a step-by-step game plan that no matter consciously what you think, you just go through the motions. And that's either the morning ritual, morning routine, whatever you want to call it. And for me, I'll just give you mine specifically because a lot of guys kind of liked it. And what I do is, first things first, I need to hydrate. You haven't drank any water all night. That's 6 to 8 hours of no water, right? So boom, I take a whole lemon, squeeze that lemon, slam it down with a glass of water. Then I have 4 scrambled eggs. For me, I'm trying to bulk up, so that's my protein, gets day started. And then boom, bulletproof coffee. If I'm at home, I have that nice bulletproof coffee. If I'm on the road, I just have a coffee. And what's important about this is not even so much what it is, although you see the things I have in place there. There's like a health benefit and there's like a psychological benefit. But that actually is what is the most important, is the anchoring aspect of it, right? So what happens is all of a sudden you're like, oh, cool, you go and you're kind of unconscious, and you know, I'm making my scrambled eggs, and I'm not thinking about shit at all, and I'm like, whoa. All of a sudden I get to that coffee and I'm wide awake. And yes, there's a little caffeine there, but it's not the caffeine that's the thing going on here. It's that you have this ritual and you have this anchor, and all of a sudden this momentum kicks in and you're like, oh, let's start the day. And you have, again, that positive feedback loop that happens there, and because all of a sudden you go into your big productive task there, you all of a sudden anchor in that kind of productive, confident, enthusiastic, passionate vibe to where now I just have a cup of coffee and I'm like, oh! And again, it's not the caffeine, it's the emotional anchor that I've created to like productivity and going in and taking action because of the morning ritual I created. And so if you look at what we've done, we've structured the night before, we structured the first thing in the morning, and those are some pretty key aspects of your life because the night before sets you up for that day, and the way you start your day sets you up for your day. So that's why I started there, because I think those are the most important aspects of it. But then as you build some momentum to start your day off right, you can actually structure out every increment throughout your day. So using things like the Pomodoro technique, which is a nice psychological tool to kind of, you work really hard for 45 minutes, you take a 15-minute break, then you do another 45 minutes with a 15-minute break. Those 15-minute breaks are when I put my meditation in, another 15-minute break or half an hour. Sometimes I take a nap. So sometimes I do like 3 hours of sleep and then I'll do like a 30-minute nap, and kind of structuring that throughout the day, planning it out to where literally my first 8 hours of my day are planned out strategically as possible, knowing what I need to do in which specific order to get it as productive as possible to achieve everything that I want to achieve. And then all of a sudden, boom, 6 o'clock rolls around and I'm like, holy shit, look at everything I've achieved here. This is fucking awesome. Let's reward myself by going to the gym. Or I'll keep working and do a couple more segments and then say, let's reward myself by going out. Or let's reward myself with a nice TV show or hanging out with my girlfriend or something like that. And you don't feel guilty because you literally fucking blasted your whole day and you achieved so much. So just think about how you can structure it out and get even more and more granular. So, caveat here. Caveat, whoa. You might be watching this and you're like, okay, Brad, I'm stoked, I'm excited. I'm gonna have this structure. I see the importance of it. I see how it gives you freedom. But I don't want you to stack on too much right away. Baby steps in everything. We talk about baby steps in pickup, but also baby steps here. You're gonna get overwhelmed if you throw too much on at once. Or the other thing is just know that the way you set the system up at first is not gonna be the best way. I've done this for years. So how do you expect you all of a sudden immediately? I mean, I guess I'm helping you by, you know, cutting your, giving you some shortcuts here. But what you need to do is just start with, let's say, like 3 to 4 things. So maybe it's like the morning ritual, the nighttime ritual, you know, like a 30-minute reading session, and then maybe your first Pomodoro, your first little hour. Just saying one of the things is like, the first thing I do after my morning ritual is I do that really productive thing. Or maybe it's no snooze. I mean, that could be one too. And put you know, in the LSA, we have a daily tracker. I'll show like what it looks like kind of, and you can model this. It's just an Excel spreadsheet where if you do it, it turns green. If you don't do it, it turns red. And so by starting off small, let's say you have 3 to 4 things, go for a whole week or go for 2 weeks and make sure you consistently get all those green, or at least on the weekdays, and then you have a different system for the weekends. And then you look at that and it's cool because you can look visually and say, oh, cool. I'm actually achieving everything I want to here. I'm actually, you know, accomplishing it all. Let's add on another thing. Okay, so I want to highlight a couple last pointers here. One is, I think most people, why they don't get into this is because they're thinking, I don't even have the time to plan my time, to plan my time, to plan my time. And it's this like a circle of like the snake eating its tail sort of thing. But if you just spend an hour every Sunday or like 2 hours, what'll happen is you'll strategize, you look at things from such a higher perspective, that meta level, that when you go, you have your to-do list and it's Monday and you're checking shit off, you're like, you just build so much momentum because things are just laid out perfectly. Instead of like running around scrambling, thinking like, what do I gotta do next? Like thinking, and your mental RAM is all tied up and trying to figure out what you gotta do. That's just all planned ahead. So don't think that, oh man, I'm wasting time planning time. That it's really important to do that, and it's gonna totally give a multiply effect to how much shit you accomplish. So that's the first step, is make the time to create the time. And number 2, again, is it's inevitable when you set this up at first, you're gonna be a little bit overzealous and you're gonna plan too many things and the system's gonna collapse and it's gonna fall apart. Don't beat yourself up, don't get pissed off, start super small. And then when you're doing small little things, celebrate the small victories. I talk about this a lot. People, they're just too excited to get to the end and they wanna get there, but just start small. Get that full green, get that full week of green. Check, 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 start building some confidence. And then once you build that confidence, then start adding more things. And then if it falls apart again, don't beat yourself up. Take a step back, restructure until you're achieving like all this awesome shit and life is just fucking good. All right, so as I said, with structure comes freedom. And it's just amazing how much more productivity you can squeeze out of the day when you use this system. Seriously, I look back at 6 months ago and I'm like, oh my God, look at how much more I can do now than 6 months ago or 2 or 3 years ago. And I hope the same thing happens for you. I know it will happen if you put some of these systems in place. Like I said, it's worked for me and it's worked for hundreds of other guys in the academy.
All right, so hopefully you got a couple new quick tips. You've got some action items to structure your day more effectively. What I want to add as a new level to this, as a new paradigm, is there's a time and place to put those things in your day-to-day schedule, and then there's a time and place to completely let them go. And what I realized for me is I had a huge epiphany. I had a huge sort of turning point moment for me when I actually went kind of crazy blind for about 2 months there. What I realized through that process is that it forced me to lay down. It forced me, all I could do for like a month and a half was lay down in my bed and listen to audiobooks. I couldn't work on the business, and I was able to do coaching calls wearing sunglasses because I had such extreme light sensitivity. But then coming out of that, what I realized is I was like, oh my God, the business keeps growing. The business keeps getting better, even though I'm doing less and less work. The coaching calls were getting better, so that led to more referrals and more people sticking on. And the business, there was more success to it, more financial success, and I was doing less and less work. And at first I kind of felt a little guilty around that. But what I realized what was happening is because I just let go, because I was just letting things come naturally, whether you say it's from your subconscious, whether you say it's from, the manifestations of consciousness and no thing, nothing, the universe coming through you, God and all his infinite wisdom, whatever you want to call it, coming from that congruent place and not having that stressed out, oh my God, I gotta get every hour, every minute out of every hour, squeeze out all that productivity that I can, because I was just letting that go. And I think a lot of it was just trained in the past. So a lot of my habits have been ritualized, have been habitualized. And coming from that place, just letting go, taking long walks, thinking deep thoughts, sitting around, reading so much more, the ideas that I was having were able to level me up to a whole new level. And through that experience, I've really taken that and applied it with clients saying, hey, you can only work 2 hours a day. Your 2-hour workday. No, it's no longer the 4-hour work week, it's the 2-hour workday. And say, you gotta figure out how to delegate the rest. You gotta figure out or realize how much of what you're doing is actually not even necessary. Focus on your strengths, don't do what you're weak at, delegate everything else, or just remove it from your life. And so I would say, yes, go ahead, implement everything that you learned from me in London. But on top of that, don't get too stressed out. Don't get too identified with the hustle, with the grind. It doesn't need to be a grind. Things can just flow really naturally. I think a great analogy is when you think about, let's say you're in a sailboat and you're like, okay, I want this to go faster. You could blow on that sail and you could really blow and you could really get exhausted trying to blow, and it may even help a little bit. But instead what you could do is let go and just let the wind take you. And you can just sail naturally with the current, go downstream, and have your life flow more elegantly, have things go through you. And then when you add on top some of these tactical things, that's what leads to you just feeling like you're in the flow, you're in that great state, things just come to you, law of attraction, that's where that place really comes from. So, hopefully you enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you next time. As always, enjoy.